Welcome, I'm Malcolm Gallagher, and you're watching the BVTV network coming from the UK studios of BizVision. I meet hundreds of leadership authors and thought leaders each year, all with their own take on what makes a good leader, which is fair enough, but often that take is moulded on themselves. In my mind, leadership shouldn't be cloned. Today, I'm taking you to meet someone who I know will make you think, but do that thinking from your own perspective, not down a pre-planned, well-trodden route. My guest helps leaders to develop future intelligence and creative problem-solving abilities. And that allows them to identify future trends, pivot with ease, and use emotional intelligence to tap into the needs and desires of their customers and employees. So let's go say hello to Sara Sabin. Welcome, Sara.
Hello, Malcolm. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and you're just about to rub it all into me that you're sitting in the sunshine in Malaga, aren't you?
I am, and it is extremely hot today. So it's about 34 degrees Celsius, and I'm next to an air conditioning unit.
Oh, right. Well, we're in a bar in Northumberland and the balmy 17 degrees. Never mind. Sara, I absolutely love your 8 ways to get out of your head, the free download that anyone can get at your website. But we'll have a chat about that later. I'm keen on exploring more with what you think, what I think is so appropriate for today's Leaders channel, and that's future intelligence. Viewers and listeners, my talk with Sara will be in 3 parts. In the first part, I want to explore with her this future intelligence skill that she helps today's leaders gain. Then I want to ask her to select just two of her 8 ways to get out of your head. You can get the rest at her website, and I'll tell you in a few minutes' time how to do that. And in part 3, I want to ask her what she thinks are the 3 key skills that today's leaders, not yesterday's, today's leaders need to grasp in order to take their business successfully forward in this new and altered world. But first, Sara, can you briefly tell us who is Sara Sabin and what makes you jump out of bed in the morning, apart from to beat the sunshine?
So my name is Sara Sabin. I come from a corporate background. I was in corporates for about 9 years. I've founded 2 startups, consulted for various other tech startups, and my current work and lifeblood is transformational leadership coaching for leaders and entrepreneurs. So I'm very fortunate to love what I do. I was fortunate to begin this business very purposefully. So I had a big picture mission of what I wanted to achieve in the world. And I get to do that through the people that I work with every day.
It is exciting at the moment, isn't it? The world of leadership coaching, because leaders have suddenly been thrust in with whole new challenges with the pandemic that they've never encountered before.
Yes, that's so true. The interesting thing for me is that, the world is changing faster than ever before. Uncertainty is increasing, but actually the pandemic was merely an accelerant of that rather than the root cause of it, because with the pace of technology changing, with competitors popping up every day, there's a new fintech company or this tech company or that tech company. We all need to be on our toes. We need to be able to foresee what's going to happen in the future. And that's kind of a prelude into future intelligence. But that real visionary quality is necessary to be around as a business in the next 5 to 10 years. And add into the mix artificial intelligence as well. I mean, who knows what functions will become obsolete in the next 5 to 10 years. So there's a mass reskilling that needs to go on in the workforce as well, so that we are all prepared for the workplace of the future.
Yeah. Let's move into part 1, because I am intrigued about this future intelligence skill that you help today's leaders gain. So explain what it is, why it's needed, and how you do it.
So actually, Malcolm, I'm going to start with a quote, just to explain the difference between intelligence and cleverness. I'm going to read out. So it's a quote by Eckhart Tolle, who is a spiritual teacher and guru, and this is from his book, A New Earth. Cleverness pursues its own little aims. Intelligence sees the larger whole in which all things are connected. Cleverness is motivated by self-interest, and it is extremely short-sighted. Most politicians and business people are clever, very few are intelligent. Whatever is attained through cleverness is short-lived and turns out to be eventually self-defeating. Cleverness divides, intelligence includes.
Yeah.
And I just love that quote.
Yeah, I get that quite. It's true. I meet lots of clever leaders, but I wouldn't say they were always intelligent, because intelligence to me is also having a radar, 360 radar. You know what's going on in your sector. You know what's going on in another area. You're inquisitive.
Yes, and the curiosity is key. But to put it into kind of some tangible examples of what future intelligence might look like in leadership context, in what I call the old paradigm of leadership, you had a lot of companies and a lot of leaders that focused purely on profit. And it was all about profit, and it didn't matter who you stepped over to get there, whether it was your employees, your competitors, whatever. Now, that is actually short-sighted, because it leads to a whole host of problems. It leads to disengaged and demotivated employees. It leads to a lack of customer loyalty, because customers, I think, can sense when you're just after their money and you're not really providing any great service. So the future intelligent way of looking at it is focus on value, on service, on providing the best that you can with your company in whatever sector you're in. And that has numerous long-term effects, such as creating a shared philosophy internally, more happy employees, because there's a lot of research to suggest that more purposeful employees are more motivated and higher performing. You've got a consistent brand message that you put out there, which helps to generate that customer loyalty, which serves you in the long term. Because at the end of the day, if you tie a customer into a year contract and they don't get what they want at the end of the year, they will move. Yeah. And then you have to go through all the trouble of kind of building that up again. So future intelligence is also about vision. What are we trying to create? How do we actually think ahead of the curve? So thought leadership is sometimes what it's called as well. Thinking about what's likely to be a risk down the road and trying to bulletproof it now before the point at which it becomes a risk. So that's another example of future intelligence, developing that more visionary quality. And that's not restricted to only senior leadership either. If you can have teams that are also encouraged to think in this way, on focusing on the right things that align with the vision and direction of the business, then what you've got is a team of more productive people. So future intelligence, the biggest acid test is, number one, do I have a strong vision and direction and purpose? And do we all know why we're here? Great, fine. So that's tick one. Tick two is, if I make this decision as a leader, does it bring us closer towards it or further away from it? So if I choose to do these activities today that I'm saying are super, super urgent, super high priority, does it bring us closer to the vision or further away? Because there's an awful lot of busy work that people get trapped into doing.
Yeah, you see, I was just thinking as you were chatting there as well about the importance of thinking of the future. It must help motivationally and mentally to be thinking ahead that, what are we going to be doing in 5 years' time? Stop you thinking and worrying about this moment in time.
Yeah, I mean, I think Eckhart Tolle would say we must be focused in the present, but that doesn't stop us having a direction for the future. So the way that I look at it is, okay, you have this big overarching goal, whatever that is. So let's say you want a 10x turnover in 5 years, whatever it is. You don't lose sight of that, but you might change the steps that you take to get to that vision. But, when people are aware of the big picture, they're like, okay, well, this roadblock has come up. What are we going to do to get around it? Rather than sort of coming from a place of no one really knowing what the direction is, what they're aiming for, which makes it very hard to bulletproof against the risks of not getting there.
Yeah. Sarah, before we move to part 2, let me just remind everyone of your website URL or your website address, which viewers you can see on the screen behind me. But for listeners, let me spell it out for you. It's Sara Sabin. Now, let me just remember, there's no H in Sarah. It's SARA SABIN, sarasabin.com. And I'll go there and click on the table to download her free 8 ways to get out of your head and make a career or business impact. It really is totally free, by the way, and it really is to the point. I think it's great. Right, Sarah, time for part 2, and let's go to those 8. I know they're all important, but can I ask you to select just 2 to chat about, 2 that you think will make the most impact for today's leaders?
Yeah, so part 1, or point 1, which is something I absolutely love talking about because I'm trained in neuroscience for professional development, the use of the gut feeling. So the brain in the gut is actually a real thing. You have neural pathways going from the brain to the gut, and in fact you had 2 going from the gut to the brain and only 1 going the other way around. So it is there to provide you with a filtering mechanism for decision making, because if you are faced with a decision, what very often happens with very analytical and logical people, which is pretty much all of my clients, you go into analysis paralysis often. If you just try and gather every bit of information that you can possibly get, there will always be a limitation to that. You'll never know everything. But quite often we have this gut feeling about a particular decision, or going to a particular partnership, or going down a particular road. And if we can learn to pay attention to that, we can filter out things very quickly and send the right things up to the brain for processing and further logical analysis. So it's a quicker way of making decisions. And then the other thing, really kind of linked into what I said about vision and these big goals, what people often forget to do is to stop and celebrate the small things along the way. So you've got this big goal, you're exponentially progressing, because that's what I'm interested in, exponential growth, not incremental. On an exponential bell curve, if you look backwards, it looks flat. And if you look forwards, it looks like it's completely vertical. Unless you stop to acknowledge everything you have achieved on this exponential bell curve, you risk demotivation. And we all get demotivated sometimes, but we don't want to let it chuck us off our path. So learning to celebrate these small milestones
Yes.
milestones as we go along can really help to keep you focused and moving on the path that you're on.
So does that mean that a little bit of celebration is a glass of San Miguel or Rioja in your way down that way?
No, seriously, it can literally be anything. Whatever your thing is, whether it's a glass of wine, whether it's dancing around the living room,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever it happens to be for you, or it could just be as a confidence builder, making a list of everything that you've achieved in the last 1 to 2 years.
Yeah.
And if you look at that list and you feel happy, oh yeah, actually I've done quite a lot. Great, keep doing it. If not, maybe it's time to shake things up.
I really like that. Now, just to remind you, viewers and listeners, go along to Sara Sabin, SaraSabin.com, and download that free 8 list. And just, obviously she's given you 2, but there's another 6 there. And it really is, and it's a lovely graphic, by the way, I must admit. Get there, and those 8 can be a great guide for you. My final part with Sara is to ask what she thinks are the 3 key and possibly new skills that today's leaders, not yesterday's, today's leaders, need to grasp in order to take their business successfully forward in this new altered world.
So, skill number 1, coaching culture. So, in the old world, and whatever you call it, the old paradigm, a leader got to where they are through virtue of their knowledge, usually technical, and they were expected to know everything about everything. So they were really that expert. Now, in the new world, it's about coaching other people to be the best that they can be, and bringing together people with different skill sets to achieve a certain outcome. Because the fact remains that one extremely high performing person by themselves will never achieve as much as a team working collaboratively and well together. Now, in order for that to happen, they all need to support and mentor each other. And that starts with a coaching culture. So leaders helping their teams to get the best out of themselves. Number 1. Number 2, emotional intelligence. There's so much talk about this at the moment, and I'm going to break it down into exactly what it is. Now, there's lots of research to suggest by, for example, Dr. Travis Bradbury, about how emotional intelligence is linked to staff performance, and how he's actually done surveys that show that director level and above within an organization, the level of emotional intelligence drops. So what you get is people at the top that don't necessarily have very good people skills, which makes it very hard to introduce coaching culture. Now, emotional intelligence is made up of 4 quadrants, and 2 relate to yourself and 2 relate to how you interact with others. So it is much more than just empathy and compassion. It's all about balance. So empathy is part of social awareness, for example, but it needs to be balanced with relationship management, which is clear expectations of other people, having tough conversations that need to be had rather than avoiding confrontation. Now, if you approach these from the place of empathy, the outcome is likely to be better. But before you even think about other people, you need to think about yourself. So self-awareness and self-management. How well do you know yourself and how you are perceived by other people? And self-management. How well do you understand your own emotions and how they impact you and other people around you? So as an example of that, there is something that happens in you when you get emotional. It's called emotional hijacking. Your emotions literally take over. And if you make a decision from that place, it's not likely to be rational or logical. But learning to understand how that's happening, you can choose to react in a different way. Yeah. And emotional intelligence is one of the 10 skills in the workplace of the future, which was which were talked about in a study by the World Economic Forum. So really big one. And number 3, being a seeker for personal transformation and growth. So within that falls a growth mindset. We don't know everything. And we need to be constantly looking for ways to be better, to do our jobs better, to help our teams to do their jobs better, and to grow our own skills. And I always say experience can be a double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have 20 years industry experience doing something, that is absolutely amazing. However, if you insist on doing something the same way that you have always done it, because that was how you've always done it and it worked in the past, that might not be so helpful today.
Yes, that's what you'll always get, what you've always done, isn't it? Yeah. Excellent. So just finish off slightly there. That's third one. Just reinforce it to everybody.
So basically, combining experience with this thirst for knowledge and curiosity is where you really want to be as a leader, because at the end of the day, even if something did work 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, it doesn't mean that it will work now in today's current climate. And, as I said, things are changing faster than ever. We can't afford to get stuck in old ways of doing things.
Yeah. So having an inquiring mind, isn't it? Some people are just quite happy for it's 5:30. I'll pull the blinds down on my brain. And they don't go down that extra edge. They don't look to take a new path or consider new paths, do they?
No. And I hasten to add, it's not all on you to seek out this knowledge. That's also, when you have a team, you're drawing on their knowledge and insights as well. But as a leader, you have to listen, be prepared to listen, rather than showing up in a meeting and talking and then no one else can get a word in edgeways.
Yeah. I knew when I started this conversation today, or when I was inviting Sarah to be a guest, that I was really keen, and I could see where the future intelligence is needed. But something came out today, Sarah, I must tell you about a report from Chartered Institute of Procurement and Supply, and it's basically saying that, big survey done, that only 4%, that's only 4% of the supply chain are future ready. They've just been focusing on the present instead of looking, as you are convincing people about future intelligence being future ready. Now, if you think about it, those companies that are those 4%, they're going to get a lead on everybody else, aren't they?
Yes, of course they are. It's the difference between, and I saw this a lot during the pandemic, and it's completely understandable. Let's just focus on getting through the next week, the next month, which is fine if for a short amount of time you need to do that, but it just doesn't work in the long term, because whilst you're consistently focusing on the short term, things are changing again.
Yeah. And of course, people get like to see a longer term vision. I knew when I had the opportunity of inviting Sara Sabin as a guest that she would be an ideal fit for our flagship BVTV Today's Leaders channel. Our aim for the channel is to bring you, our viewers and listeners, sensible and realistic thinking to help you lead forward in this new altered world. Thanks, Sarah, for showing everyone that success path.